Hello friends, and welcome to my channel for another custom action figure video. This one has been long awaited. I've had many requests since I started my custom Ninja Turtles odyssey to make a custom Master Splinter. And like many of my customs for a long time, I was like, I don't think I'm going to make a Splinter. I didn't have a vision for how I was going to do one yet. And I knew that I was going to want to do like fur on him, and that was going to be an undertaking, and I didn't really have a plan for that yet. I hadn't quite developed this technique that I used here yet, so I didn't do it for a really long time. And then I got to a point where I was like, you know what, I think I want to make a Splinter, and I figured out a recipe in my head, and then I took it from there. So I had been seeing since the Mezco 112 Turtles came out that a lot of people were using this NECA comic book version Splinter from the Eastman and Laird original Mirage comics as a stand-in for their Mezco Turtles, because he's tiny and he scales well. So I was like, you know what, that'd be a good base, and he comes with soft goods. So that actually saved me a lot of headache, because I wasn't sure what I was going to do about the body, and you need a tail and all that stuff and the right proportions. So I picked this guy up, and then I decided to use a wool yarn. I figured something like wool would be good for my yarn technique because it's a little more bristly and it'll look a little bit more like fur. So from there, I needed to find a head, and I was like, I can sculpt one, but I thought back to my custom turtles where I used these kind of cheap Amazon toys for the shells. And I was like, I know you can find like a cheap rat, like a plastic rubber rat or something. So I found this for a few bucks, and the head is the exact right size that I needed. Like you can see, it's pretty much perfect for the size of this figure. So next I just needed to figure out how to attach it. So thankfully the head just attaches from the original like cheapo figure. And essentially what I did is I cut off a couple layers and I sort of layered them underneath on the neck area. And then I used a neck adapter from a Noda figure and glued it on the inside of the rat head, because thankfully it was hollow. So that allowed me to maintain all the articulation. And then I cut a groove at the front of the neck so that the peg could lean forward more. So next up, I painted the whole head black, because the original NECA figure has a very clear black underpainting and then brown dry brushing for the fur on top. So I wanted to match that, because whenever you're starting with like a new piece, like a new head like this, it's a good idea to kind of get it to like a matching point, like 0, before you start doing your other stuff to it. So essentially I painted it to just be like it was part of this figure, and knowing that I was going to put fur onto it later. Then next I painted the ears, eyes, nose, and feet and hands a kind of a flesh color, like a pink, kind of lightish peach color. That's what rats look like. They have, light skin and then fur that darkens it. So I wanted to have that realistic look instead of having it be like all brown. And that really helped kind of push it into a new level of realism. And then as you can see here, once you paint the eyes in, I mean, this thing just like really comes to life. So I looked at reference for rat eyes, and then I painted it as such, and then I hit it with a nice couple layers of a gloss varnish to really add that sort of wet reflective look and really give it a lot more life. So here I've started to add the fur, and this is layer by layer, strand by strand. Like it's really tedious work, but you can see how much is coming to life on the side that has most of the fur versus the one that doesn't. I mean, at this point, it's starting to look like a taxidermied rat. Like it really brought this thing to life in a way that I wasn't, I was hopeful it was going to look like this, but I was really blown away by like what the results actually started to look like. This really just was so satisfying. And then as you can see, we have the final result. So once I did the head, then I gave him kind of like bushy eyebrows and sort of a Fu Manchu kind of goatee. Just to give him a little bit more of like a anthropomorphic sort of human aspect to him. Oh, I forgot to mention I used fishing line for the whiskers. It's interesting because like in the history of Splinter, he usually looks the most like the original animal that he is, as opposed to the turtles don't really look all that much like turtles, aside from their shells and stuff. Like their heads are just not what turtles look like. But Splinter always kind of maintains that rat-like quality. So I really leaned into that with this and didn't give him any kind of like humanoid features. And I'm really pleased with the results. I used the little kimono that he came with, and then I had some pieces from GPS lot from a samurai outfit that I got from them that I used to make a Ghost of Tsushima Jin Sakai figure. And so I used some of the scraps from that, and that's how I made this sort of waist, tie around his belt. And then also the sort of red overlayer kimono thing, like the sleeveless part. And then I had like this sort of tie from a GPS slot ninja suit that I used to make like the final belt. And then I just gave him the staff that the NECA figure came with, and he was good to go. So here he is with my custom figures, my custom Ninja Turtles that I built pretty much from scratch, using like kit bash parts and stuff. And then these are my custom Mezco figures with my custom head sculpts on them that I made. Those, I still have plans to try to make those so that people can get their own, but it's a very, very long, tedious process of making copies and stuff. So I will get there eventually, and hopefully sooner rather than later. But here he is lined up with all 4 of the brothers, and he scales so perfectly with these. That's, I mean, this figure, seeing what other people were doing with it when they got the NECA one and were putting with their Mezco figures, I was like, oh, that's the perfect Splinter for this. And I just needed it to have my sort of touch to it. So that's what I've done here, and I'm really, really pleased with how these all look together. And, you know, likewise, I really like how he looks down below with the other guys. I think that just this like contrast of this tiny little rat guy with these big turtles looks really, really cool. And I like the scale difference. I like when Splinter is smaller than them. It gives him kind of a Yoda-like quality where, you know, he's like the smallest but the baddest dude in the room, and I love that aspect of Splinter, and I love that here in this display. And let's just take a moment to look at the whole collection together so far. This Splinter came with a mouser, so I put that in there next to Bebop and Shredder, and I will be repainting that to look more realistic at some point, but for now I think it's okay as a kind of comic booky coloring to it. And yeah, I'm so floored about this setup. I can't wait to finish Rocksteady. He's next, and probably the final one I'm going to make in this line. You know, I may get inspired later, but as far as like the core characters of the Ninja Turtles for me, you know, growing up as a kid with the cartoon and, you know, with the video games and the movies, like this feels right to me. This is kind of the way I always wanted them to look. I'm also running out of room, and somebody suggested I make a sewer layer diorama for the Mezco setup and then have the street scene with all my customs and my turtle van. And I think that's going to be the move. I think it'd be fun to make a sewer diorama, and that's like one of the things I haven't tried tackling yet. And then I could have my street scene with all these guys on it. So that might be coming soon. We'll see. If I can make the room for another full shelf display. That's going to wrap up this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Please hit like and subscribe. That's really going to help out the channel. Right now, YouTube is all wonky and views are down across the board. So the more, you know, you can help spread this around and share it with friends, the more I can make these. So I appreciate it. And please stay tuned for a little bit of info about my comic book work. So that is going to do it for this video. I want to thank you all so much for watching. I invite you to click the like button and hit subscribe and join me as I make cool stuff. Custom figures, dioramas, vehicles to go with the figures. I review new stuff that I get on the channel. If you're looking for other ways to support this, I've got t-shirts available. My Head on Swivel shirt, as well as several other action figure and comic book themed shirts are available in my Redbubble shop. If you've never used Redbubble, it's pretty great. You pick the color shirt, the style, and the design you want, and they ship it right to you. Now, if you're not a t-shirt person, but you like comics, I've got several comics and graphic novels available, namely my books High Crimes, Count, and Retroactive. High Crimes is kind of Breaking Bad meets Cliffhanger. Retroactive is like James Bond meets Groundhog Day, and Count is my sci-fi reimagining of the Count of Monte Cristo. Think kind of a, John Wick meets Batman meets Zorro. It's a cool story with swashbuckling action and sword fights and vehicle chases, and it's about redemption, revenge, and revolution. So those are all available at your local comic shop, bookstore, or at the links in the description below. So to everyone who's picked up a shirt already or one of my books, thank you so much. Like, that means the absolute world to me, and I really, really appreciate it. It really helps make it so that I can do this kind of stuff and bring you more videos. Couldn't ask for anything more, so thank you. So that's gonna do it for this one. Until next time, keep your head on swivel.